Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. Let's take a look at security. It's one of the most important subjects in the land, so that's why we're quite frequent on it, almost as frequent on it perhaps as politics itself. Okay, in this connection, we have a couple of experts, but the first guest is Dr. Kabir Adamu. He's the CEO of Beacon Consulting Limited. Good morning to you, and thank you very much for coming on, Dr. Kabir.
My pleasure, Uncle Yori. Good morning.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. Okay, the question of armed robbery is a menace to our society. We also have the whole problem of insurgents as well. But bandits are bandits. Insurgents are insurgents. And to most of us, these are two categories of bad fish. To now talk, and we've talked about a non-kinetic approach in terms of insurgents and insurgency, but when it comes to banditry and bandits, can we still be talking about a non-kinetic approach, which the way I summarize it is a non-violent approach?
Yes, Uncle Yori. If you look at the origins of each of, you've mentioned about three major security threats that we have in Nigeria. You mentioned armed robbery, you mentioned terrorism, you also mentioned banditry. Now, it's not as if they're existing in different spaces. And I think this is something that as Nigerians we need to realize. They are operating in the same space. So if you go to, let's say, a local government, you are likely to find all of these threat elements together. Now, if you now go deeper to look into the drivers, what are the reasons why those things started, you will find out that the drivers are subgrouped into basically four: political, economic, social, and environmental. And you can wrap all of that under one subheading, which is governance. Some would say governance deficit. Now, in a situation where you have governance deficit, and then you now have these four drivers that I've mentioned, the political, the social, the economic, and the environmental. If you use force alone, mostly when you also remember that these are your citizens, if you use force alone, you are likely to alienate a significant number of your citizens. And so this is where the non-kinetic measure comes in. The ones among them that are salvageable because they are operating in the same ecospace, some of them have been forced either out of compulsion, they've been conscripted forcibly, others is because of this governance deficit. If you are in a place where, for instance, the only person who provides governance or authority is a bandit, as an example, and you don't dare question him because there is no government presence. So it would be I would say to be very clear, it would be unfair for now government to go and now, treat that person who has been coerced, as it were, forcefully into keeping silence or turning the other eye to allow that bandit to operate. It would be unfair to treat him as also a bandit. So this is where the non-kinetic measures come in. How do you bring those ones that are on the borderline? How do you bring them out? It is through non-kinetic measures. You bring them out, and then those hardcore ones that are the real bandits, you now deal with them using force and with the support of those ones that are on the borderline. So in a nutshell, this is why non-kinetic measures are very important. They enhance the buy-in. At the moment, if you talk to our security forces, almost all of them, they will tell you their major challenge is the lack of buy-in from the local populace. And the answer to that buy-in is rooted in non-kinetic measures. If they can improve their observance of international and national human rights, if they can show that they are actually working for the community, then you see more people buying in and supporting what they are doing. And once they have that support, then it would be the beginning of the end of both the armed robbers, the terrorists, as well as the bandits.
So thank you very much, for that overview. Because what you're saying, Dr. Adamu, I think it takes some digesting because, and people have to understand it, perhaps in the light in which you are explaining it. Ordinarily, you know, people take it from the Quran, from the Bible, and all the religious groups, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill. And so these are moral standards people grow up with. And so there will be a number of people that perhaps might be hearing this, and you are looking at it as a technical issue that, you know, here we are on Earth, these things have to be sorted out, and so we have to look at it technically. But it'll be confusing to many people because it will seem as if what the experts are saying, the security experts are saying is that, well, you see, there are reasons that these things happen. And so we have to be understanding of the situation, and we can't throw the book at them, so to speak. Do you understand the confusion that some might have? Because these are bad guys. You know, if a person is a bandit, by definition, he robs you. Is it on the highway? Is it comes to your house? And what you've explained that, look, okay, there are some hardcore elements, but there are also some borderline cases. Now, what do we do apart from fall back on what we've spoken extensively about on this program over the years, which is good governance? Take the reason away from the bandits, whether they are mid-level, whether they are hardcore, but take the reason for banditry. In other words, they can get sustenance in other, you know, from other means, apart from, you know, what the police will call these dastardly acts of banditry. Is that really what it comes down to, alongside, no, I'm not going to use the word negotiation, it's dialogue. I think dialoguing with them, as opposed to negotiating with them. First of all, you will also comment, Doctor, because you're also an academic on these matters. The difference between negotiation and dialogue when we're dealing with robbers. How problematic do you think those concepts are?
Oh, extremely problematic, especially where the issues have not been properly disaggregated and that have been maybe contracted or engaged, I'm not sure which word to use, that are using those backdoor channels to reach out to some of these non-state actors, criminals, you know, the bandits, the terrorists, in an attempt to dialogue with them and then eventually encourage them to negotiate, as it were. One of the examples I'll give you is what happened in Birnin, which is in Kaduna State.
Okay.
It's a classical example of how dialoguing can lead to negotiation and then some form of truce. We were told that the community reached out to the government and said they had engaged the bandits and that they have reached some form of agreement with the bandits. And so the government came in, brought the two sides together, and now they have some form of truce that has allowed livelihood and to a larger extent peace to be restored to Birnin, which is commendable, as it were. But of course, there are challenges. In academic terms, especially the UN, it has done a lot in putting forward framework for negotiation. So there is the DD, triple D and triple R concept. Demobilization, de-radicalization, rehabilitation, name them, the triple D, triple R. Now, these are structured processes that have about 12 steps associated with them. Okay. That if you are going to do it in that manner, you have to follow them one after the other. Unfortunately, because the locations that engage in these dialogues and negotiation do not have the requisite capacity for this type of engagement, they don't do these 12 steps. And that's why we see the kind of fallouts and mistakes that we've seen in several places in Nigeria. A good example is in Katsina State, where they attempted it, and because they didn't follow these 12 steps, it fell flat on its face and came back to haunt them. The same thing with Zamfara State. They attempted it without sincerity, without following those 12 steps, and then it fell flat and it came back to haunt them. In Kaduna State, those 12 steps were not followed, but to a larger extent, they followed all the conventional steps. So that truth is holding at the moment, even though there are issues. Like I said, the 12 steps were not followed.
There's no way the word bandit or banditry are positive terms. Yet you say the citizenry identifies with them. And I think you also said that, look, in all of this, we have to be very careful because these people, whether insurgents, whether bandits, are our own people. And so we can't bring out cannons, as it were, to these people. So that's why I'm asking you how optimistic you are that we can get the desired result, the results we want, when somebody from a different area, maybe in the south, for example, maybe wherever, is just going along that fantastic notion that I outlined that, look, things are hard. I think I'm going to take up banditry. And if they catch me, we'll negotiate. You know, that's what we're doing. Look at this area, they're doing it there, and they're doing it there. So I think I'm going to stop sitting at home. I'm going to go out, see how many people I can rob, and there are examples to show that we can come and talk about it later. It's against that backdrop that I asked how optimistic you are we can get the results we require through a non-kinetic approach.
So, Uncle Yuri, let me correct a misimpression. Simply just surviving. And also to break it down, I recently did a study asking myself the critical question. And I usually don't do this, but for the purpose of explanation, let me do it. The general assumption is that the majority of the bandits are the Fulanis. And I asked myself, how many of these bandits represent these Fulanis? And the most conservative response I got was there are between 10 million to 35 million Fulanis in Nigeria. And the percentage of the bandits among them do not number up to 100,000, Uncle Yuri. So if you choose the lowest of that number, which is 10 million, and then you now choose the highest of the bandits number, which is 100,000, you can now see why using force, because the general security person who sees an average Fulani person concludes that that person is a bandit. When in reality, just like I think Mehdi Allah said a few days ago, they have shown to us that they are also victims of the banditry. So that is why, for instance, you need to be very measured in applying force so that you isolate the bad ones and deal with them with force, while the good ones, who for a lot of reasons, the cattle went to a farmer's farm and ate the farmer's crops, and that the dad was now detained. The farmer reported to the police, the dad was detained. A cycle of extortion started until the dad died. That is, now whether that is valid or not, he believes that that is why he's doing what he's doing. He started from that before he became the criminal that he became. So why am I saying this? I think on the basis of that, we need to look inwards and ask that critical question. Is our justice system being fair? Is the administration of criminal justice in Nigeria at the moment effective? I'm sure we all know the answer. It's not effective. So why don't we start with correcting those things? And these are the non-kinetic measures that I included. Correct the justice system, ensure that every Nigerian who is law-abiding, irrespective of his identity, is able to have justice. Ensure, for instance, that any offender, irrespective of the offender's identity, whether religious or ethnic identity, that offender is arrested and that he's dealt with in the manner that the law says he should be dealt with. Now, until we do that, all of these are non-kinetic measures. And for me, this is the way to go. So if you, in direct response to your answer, yes, I do believe that non-kinetic methods will work, but side by side with kinetic measures. We must, as a state, maintain the monopoly of the use of force, irrespective of the identity of the offender. It is only then that non-kinetic measures will thrive. If we use non-kinetic measures without strengthening the kinetic measures, then it will be a weak state. The fragility of the state will continue to develop until, unfortunately, we reach what no one of us wants.
All right, then. Mr. Joshua in Irewolede, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, and good morning to your guest,
Dr. Adam.
Yeah. I appreciate the questions you asked and the clarifications that your guest has made. This morning, I just want to speak to him because we need to connect to the northern leaders. It is time to call a spade a spade. A crime is a crime. A criminal is a criminal. And criminality should not be excused on account of anything. You know, these things, before now, when they talk about banditry and all those things, I used to have these people like goosebumps, feel well for humanity. They are killing their fellows, whether they are Muslims, so the ideology of whether it's a religious thing is not there. They can enter a mosque and wipe out everybody. They go to farm, they can kill anyone. So sometimes you even ask yourself, what is this campaign all about? What are they trying to achieve? So the single language that everyone should speak, whatever name we call them, is that they are criminals. And they should be faced with the consequence of their criminalities. So that we tell soldiers, you have rules of engagement, this is what you should do. These other guys are giving freedom. They have no rules of engagement, and they are killing our soldiers. And then human rights people will now hold the soldiers responsible that they killed civilians. Whereas these guys, that we bomb the whole battalion and wipe them out. Please, I think we need to have a straightforward conversation.
Okay.
Calling criminals criminals and addressing them according to the little leather weapons they are using so that we can solve this problem. I'm not interested in all these packaging and negotiation with bandits or giving them different names.
Okay, then. Thank you very much, Joshua. You heard it, Dr. Adamu. These are the kind of concerns, the pulls against, what people think of as reasonableness, and what experts explain to us that it's more layered, it's deeper than that. That's one example. How would you respond to that gentleman?
I align with his sentiments, and I think just before he came in, that was the point I was trying to make. I was talking about strengthening the criminal justice system. I was talking about strengthening the kinetic component of our national security enterprise. Now, I said very clearly that criminal justice system should arrest offenders irrespective of their identity. Now, the challenge, I think, that when we speak about regions, is sometimes we think people died in Katsina, they entered a mosque, they slaughtered people, but nobody has been held accountable. And that's not how to run a national security and enterprise. You hold people accountable because you've given them a responsibility to deliver security by allowing people to be slaughtered in the daytime, in the morning when they were in the prayer ground, the holiest of places, yet nobody has been held accountable. What happened in Benue? Nobody has been held accountable. So just the only correction I will correct, Joshua, it's not specific to the North, it is general in almost all the country, and it's something that as Nigerians we need to speak up for it to be changed. That lethargy needs to be addressed so that we see accountability within the security sector.
All right, then. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Adamu. I'll take a short break now. Do please stay with us. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. Our guest is Dr. Kabir Adamu, CEO of, Beacon Consulting. And he's been helping us to try and understand what is meant when we talk about a kinetic approach, in particular to the question of banditry in Nigeria, as opposed to, insurgency. But he has also explained how there are intersections between the two. Now, you've been speaking about conditions, Dr. Adamu. You've been speaking about conditions necessary if we're going to do a good job, a good technical job of adopting a non-kinetic approach. There are steps, which you also lamented, that have not always been followed. Now, I wanted to bring up another matter. Well, there's before I even get there, you spoke about triple D and triple R. Quickly decode that for us, the rest of us that are not security professionals.
Okay, so it's about demobilization, de-radicalization, and rehabilitation.
Okay.
It's a process that the UN has over time, expounded, consolidated. For those of us who followed developments in Liberia and Sierra Leone, they followed that process, where, for instance, you have to identify who the threat actors are, engage with them, even have a sense of what their mindset is at any point in time before you even begin the process of dialoguing and negotiation with them. So again, it's a structured process of like I said, demobilization, de-radicalization, and rehabilitation.
Okay, so that sort of gives us an insight in what those terms are. There also is the issue of, I have heard it said that political patronage of some of these guys, some of these bandits, and quite frankly, I don't even know how far away from a robber that a bandit is. But we have heard that political patronage also plays a part. When the season is high, then, there are
threat elements in Nigeria. And these are usually youth gangs who are engaged as non-state actors by politicians, sometimes as another layer of protection around them, other times to instigate, and I'm sorry to use this word, but it's the reality, to instigate attacks in certain locations where they know that their opponent is more popular than them, especially during elections. Now, we're also aware that in some instances, politicians do have that type of, maybe not direct, but indirect relationships with bandits. It's a bit more convoluted than the direct relationship that politicians would have with youth gangs, where you can see them around them. But with the case of the bandits, it would probably be through intermediaries, layers of intermediaries, for instance, before you can decipher that relationship. But yes, I think the conclusion is that there is a relationship between the political class and some of these non-state actors, including the bandits. Another example that I think is very important, especially for Zamfara State, one of the information coming out right now is that the gold mining that is quite rampant in Zamfara State, some of these bandit leaders are in control of territories where the gold is being mined. And they've made so much money from that gold that they are now interested in some form of peace deal. Because, of course, you can't be rich and you cannot enjoy the money. So to them, it's a case of, well, we've made money, let's start enjoying the money. So that's why I said if we're going to negotiate or dialogue, the terms have to be very clear. The conditions for that dialoguing will have to also be very clear in a manner that we're not encouraging lawlessness, we're not encouraging further weaponization, we're not encouraging other people to say, okay, let's pick up arms, so that the state can now dialogue with us. If you do dialogue with such a situation where a bandit has become a warlord, he's in control of a gold mine, and he wants to enjoy the proceeds of that criminality that he enjoyed, then the outcome of that, the consequence of that will be disastrous for the future of this country. So we need to be very measured in terms of the non-kinetic measures that we're advocating, knowing very well that those non-kinetic measures may further complicate the security situation that is already complicated at the moment in the country.
Oh, okay then. Let me turn to Dr. Sani Abdullahi Shinkafi, that I had said at the top of the program, would be joining us. We're happy that he has been able to do so. Good morning to you, Dr. Shinkafi.
Good morning, Chief Yori.
Thank you very much for making the time for us. Okay, we've been, hopefully you've been hearing about this, but we, as a professional, we've spoken about this in the past. Over the years, we do tend to speak about it. And, as you know, you might have heard, Dr. Kabir Adamu is the other guest on the line. Now, I just finished asking him a subject that I know you have also commented on before, which is the relationship between political patronage, talking about banditry now, between political patronage, as in when their hands are no more, when their hands are empty, so to speak, because the political season has passed, and these people now look for other means, and oftentimes those other means are banditry and that kind of a thing. Well, Dr.
So indirectly, this bandit will be overheating or will be overspeeding their nefarious activities across the states, so that they will use it as a tool or as a weapon against their political opponents. So these are indirectly, so politicians are also helping the bandit in perpetrating this crime and criminality. While some politicians feel that they are weak, they will now use that issue of banditry or terrorism as a weapon against the government in power. So we have been experienced such things, and in the past in the state, in 2015, many politicians campaigned against the government of Abdul when the banditry and cattle rustling started. In 2019, some politicians also used that issue of banditry as a weapon against the ruling party. And at the same time, in 2023, likewise, what is happening now, the campaign has started against the government in place using this banditry issue, which I have been emphasizing as politicians to stop politicizing this crime and criminality, because it's a form of act or criminality committed against humanity and the rural community. So I have been...
You rightly, there would have to be some amendment to that perspective, because you can break the law, but we're not talking in a straightforward black and white case here, is one of the things that we sort of spoke about. Do you think the law has the capacity to bend over in that way? Because might it not seem as if the law is being asked to bend over backwards to accommodate perhaps a national quest for a solution for a seemingly intractable problem?
So I don't think the point I made earlier on was to amend the law. I was referring to the administration of criminal justice, and I'm sure Dr. Shinkafi would relate with what I am saying, and especially anyone who has lived in the villages and see how some of the judges have administered the law. I'll give you instances where maybe a herder, and this is the worst case scenario, a herder has a problem with a farmer, and he goes to court. That nothing to do with his familiar relationship, but then the court can now rule that that farmer should divorce his wife, and then the judge will end up marrying that wife. We've seen several instances of that. Yes, Uncle Yuri, it may sound funny, but that's the reality. I'm just giving you the example of how justice has been thwarted. Mm-hmm. And yesterday, the Sultan of Sokoto in Enugu at the MBA conference spoke to this point where he said justice is commercialized in Nigeria. So, it may sound funny, but these are some of the root causes of the banditry and the challenge that we have in Nigeria at the moment. If we don't strengthen the administration of criminal justice, I don't think the law needs to be changed. It is how the law is interpreted, how the law is accessible, how the law is delivered to the ordinary Nigerian. If you don't have, extortion, because of what I do, as you know, I run a firm, I can't recount the number of cases of extortion that I have received and that I have attempted to handle. Instances where someone is a minor case involving probably, the trampling of crops, and it turns into a chain of extortion where the individual in question will have to sell assets just to, meet the needs of individuals within that criminal justice system. So that's the point I was making earlier on. And I think this point is known to the Nigerian state. Law reform committees have been set up, and I'm aware that even the current Attorney General of the Federation is looking into that issue. He has convened several gatherings of eminent persons within the judicial sector in a bid to improve the criminal administration of criminal justice system in Nigeria. So I think this is an issue that we must give prominence, we must strengthen if we're going to address the challenges that are happening at the moment in Nigeria.
Ola?
Who had been extorting money to abut justice. So if the judicial system has been threatened, I think it will help in the fight against banditry and criminality. Let me give you an example. In Zamfara State, some bandit accomplices were arrested who had been collecting ransom and also trafficking exiled drugs and arms and ammunition to the head out. But this person was just released following the exchange of money between the mediator and the judge. It was after such time when we heard about it, when I was the chairman committee for discussion on banditry-related offenses. We now call on the attention of the judge to revoke the bail and arrest him again and take him back to prison. But as I'm talking to you now, he was released. Many people who were arrested, aiding and abetting, even with guns, were released in the name of peace dialogue with bandits. So which judicial system and corrupt judicial officials have been contributing to the banditry in Nigeria. Unless and until this issue has been addressed holistically, then this can only bring an end to this issue of banditry. So it's another way, the way also to explore this non-kinetic effort is also to strengthen the judicial system. It is another way, because when you are talking of a non-kinetic approach to ending banditry, you have to apply non-military, non-violent, and psychological strategy. So you have to focus on social and economic activities in order to apply this non-kinetic approach. There are many strategies you have to apply. You have to address the root cause. And this weak judicial system is part of the root cause of banditry in Nigeria.
Okay. Dr. Adamu, when we're talking about a non-kinetic approach, can we go, flat out for one? I guess what I'm trying to ask is that I have heard in discussions on this subject matter that, well, non-kinetic approach doesn't necessarily mean 100% non-kinetic approach. It might be a ratio. It might be 20% non-kinetic, it might be 50% non-kinetic, it might be 60% non-kinetic, and the rest being conventional kinetic. Your comments on that whole notion of how far we can go with kinetic, can we adopt a 100% non-kinetic approach?
So the standard practice or the recommended ratio is 80% non-kinetic and then 20% kinetic. This is rooted in academic studies, military strategy, and several other practices. At the moment in Nigeria, I think we're doing the reverse. We're doing 80% kinetic and then 20% non-kinetic. Okay. So that perhaps explains why our processes are stalled. We need to enhance, especially good governance, which is a key element of the non-kinetic approach. If you have a situation where 70% of your youth population, 60% of the youth population who represent 70% of your population, that's about 140 million, 60% of that are out of job, then all you have is a pool of resources that these criminal non-state actors can just dip their hand and pick from to recruit. You also have a situation where in certain parts of the country, women are not included, as it were, in virtually everything. And so that's another population that can be exploited. And as we're seeing, they're being exploited. Add to that the socioeconomic circumstances in the country at the moment, the poverty level, the deprivation, name them. So that's why the recommendation is 80% non-kinetic, addressing issues like governance deficit, addressing socio-cultural, social cohesion, addressing environmental factors, all those root causes, addressing them, including the criminal justice system that we're discussing, before you now bring in force. But I think I wouldn't be fair to myself and my professional leaning if I say in Nigeria at the moment, what we need is to emphasize the non-kinetic. I think we need to emphasize the kinetic, contain the situation, because you can't negotiate from a point of weakness.
Indeed, at least that much we know. We agree. I'm so sorry to have interrupted you there, Dr. Adamu, but we have run out of time. So it's all that's left is for me to thank you very much for coming on and speaking to us, as well as Dr. Sani Abdullahi Shinkafi. Thank you too very much, sir, for coming on to air this subject. We might sound like a cracked record, but we need to know about these things. And I want to thank you very much, both of you gentlemen, for contributing to the concept that we have. And it was interesting for me to learn that the recommended ratio is 20% kinetic and 80% non-kinetic. So a luta continua will continue at the struggle. That's our program today. Do please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folani. Bye-bye for now.
Following is a paid presentation by ShopX TV.
Are you ready for a clearance sale deal that will change your kitchen forever? Introducing the